Hey there, this is Walter, part of the Beyond the Mask production team, and before today's episode, just want to drop you a quick note that a technical recording glitch led to today's episode being recorded on a less capable microphone. So you'll notice the overall sound quality is a little less than what you're used to hearing. We apologize for that inconvenience, and thank you for bearing with us. It's still going to be a great episode, and we've done our best to clean things up to make it as clear as possible. So thanks again for your understanding. Now, let's get to the episode. Today's episode of Beyond the Mask is presented by the insurance specialists at Bright Think Wealth Strategies. Find the disability insurance coverage that fits you best right now. Email Robert Smith at rsmithjr@financialguide.com. The show is also made possible by the team at CRNA Financial Planning. Get a free consultation today to be guided through the complexities of investing and financial planning. Just visit crnafinancialplanning.com. We'd also like to thank Helping Hands and OSA EMR for their support of the show. And don't forget, listening to our podcast can earn you Class B credits. For more information on how you can submit them, check out the CE Credit tab on our website, beyondthemaskpodcast.com. Welcome to Beyond the Mask, Innovation and Opportunities for CRNAs, with Jeremy Stanley and Sharon Pierce. We know you spend your day caring for your patient's best interests. On our show, we want to care for you. Join us as we leave the operating room and learn the latest in the CRNA industry. Beyond the Mask starts in 10, 9, 8, 7.
Sharon, good afternoon. We're back together.
We sure are.
Here.
Did you miss me for the whole 2 hours we were apart?
I know. I had to go to the student luncheon, and I don't know where you went. Where were you?
I went and had lunch with Nikki Ballister from South Aaron Foley from Maine, Yana. Everybody knows
Yana. Yeah.
From New York, and Cassandra from
Missouri.
Missouri.
Yep.
That's right, the M sometimes.
That's right.
Get me stumped up. So I had a multicultural, diverse
Yes, you did.
lunch.
In some ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Somebody from everywhere. That's what's so great about these meetings.
Yeah.
Is seeing all these people that I haven't seen in 3 years.
Yeah. It's been a great meeting. It's nice to be back in person. And loving Chicago. Maybe I'll get to see the outside today in a little bit.
You didn't get your walk-in?
No, of course not. Well, we have a special guest with us today.
We do, and I'm super excited about this.
Yes, we have Mr. Bill Bruce. Bill, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
And the new CEO of the AANA. And boy, you're in the hot seat now.
Didn't waste any time.
Well, for our listeners who maybe haven't had the opportunity to meet you and know a lot about your background, why don't you just kind of give a run of the mill of where you came from, how you got here?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've been with the AANA now since the end of June.
Yep.
And obviously new to the organization, but not new to associations. Prior to this, I was the CEO at the American College of Occupational and Environmental Medicine, which is a smaller medical specialty, also local to Chicago here in the House of Preventive Medicine, generally. Prior to that, I had a number of years working with orthopedic surgeons over at AAOS, and prior to that, with psychiatrists at the APA over out in Washington, D.C. All told, about 20 years of experience, a little more, working with different medical specialties. I'm very happy to come to my fourth area of medicine, and happy to be back to a more clinical specialty. So it's been great.
So were you CEO of any of those organizations, or?
Yes,
okay.
Of the most recent. I was the CEO at ACOM, that's what we call it. Prior to AAOS and the APA, I had varying IT-related roles. Initially, I got into the association business through an IT job, just running the technology department back at the APA. Did so at a really interesting time. They had just gone through a lot of work to replace some systems related to the Y2K scare. turned out those
We all remember that.
Yeah, it's small.
The ones at this table, our listeners, not all of them will even know what Y2K is.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a Wikipedia page out there.
Yeah. Oh, you got it.
But anyway, it was a big debacle that cost a lot of companies a lot of money in investing in new technology. It's not necessary.
Exactly.
And I was one of the early people to identify that some of those investments did not need to be made. And that led to my ascent in that organization to become their CIO. So I was their CIO from just about halfway through about 2002, if I'm remembering correctly, on to about 2012. And I fell in love with the idea of working with a membership organization while I was there. It was great to be a part of an organization that was, you have to run an association like a business to a certain point, but you're free of the expectations of the bottom line of a quarterly earnings report, at least to a point. Right, you have some latitude in what you can do with an organization there that is that is compelling, and you're helping an organization and its members become more and do more. And I found that to be very motivating.
So, what was the membership percentage in those organizations? And the reason why I ask is because our membership percentage is very high. It's a lot lower than it used to be when I was brand new CRNA, but we still have 86% of all CRNAs belong to their professional organization. What was that like in your others previously?
So the best I recall, with psychiatry, we were around 60 to 70%.
Okay.
So it's healthy, respectable. I think orthopedic surgery, we were in that same neighborhood. Orthopedic surgery has a lot of competition, and a lot of inside competition, because there are numerous subspecialty organizations.
Gotcha.
And there are a number of those, well, with the subspecialty organizations, unlike with the AANA and the state societies, the subspecialties of the AAOS do not necessarily have a dual membership requirement. They're actually completely different specializations. And so a number of orthopedic surgeons would choose their primary specialty not to be the broader AAOS, but maybe cancer surgery, foot and ankle, whichever society is relevant to what they tend to do the most on a day-in and day-out basis. So their numbers were a little bit suppressed just because of the nature of what orthopedics is. As best as we could tell, with occupational environmental medicine, it's a little bit harder to get a handle on the market of how many people that is. We were about 75%.
Oh, wow.
So it's pretty healthy. And, but again, that's a specialty that has declined in its numbers over the years because it was a bit forgotten. We were suffering from not a lot of residency support. And so we would see programs over the past 20 years slowly closing down. And of course, when we got COVID, we remembered this specialty that was whole purpose was keeping people healthy and safe while working. They brought a lot of new relevance to the organization, which made the last 2 years there very exciting. And we started to see some growth and some continued interest and some new funding going into our residency programs. And it was fantastic. It was a really good time to see them through that. What I hope for them was a turn and maybe future growth that can accelerate what we do. So respectable numbers, but not what coming into the AANA and seeing numbers in the 80s and 90s. That's incredible for an association. It really is. So.
Yeah, I think it is too. But where are you originally from? I never asked you that.
I was born in San Jose, California, and I grew up in a small town in Central California, Lodi, California. It's known for wine grapes primarily. And being very hot and dry.
It makes great wine, right?
It's where wine grows. And but I spent a lot of time between Lodi and the San Francisco Bay Area. I still have family in both places. It's a great part of the world that it's good to visit, and it's good to be from.
Yeah. So you've been here since late June. Anything surprised you up to this point? Anything sort of taking you back a little bit?
Well, that's interesting. Whenever you start a new job in the association industry, because no two organizations like this are exactly alike.
Right.
There's always going to be some surprises. There's always going to be some things that you scratch your head and think, wow, what were they thinking? And sometimes that's because you're new and you don't understand yet.
Right.
And sometimes because really do wonder what were they thinking.
What were they?
Or were they thinking? Yeah.
But no, nothing so scary here. The one thing that I think has been, to me, a really welcome surprise, and this was true at last night's foundation event. This was something that really was driven home, and I could see signs of it throughout the previous couple of days and the past couple of months. But this organization, its membership, is truly a profession that warmly and openly welcomes people to be their authentic selves in a way that no other part of medicine that I have been involved with has done. And that's something that I think CRNAs and the AANA should absolutely celebrate. It's probably more rare than maybe some people see on a day-to-day basis. Coming in, it was a refreshing surprise to see that, and to see the amount of diversity and embrace diversity within the folks here, particularly our students. It's just wonderful, and I love being a part of an organization that's like that. So.
Well, I will tell you one thing about your staff. You've probably already figured this out, but it has always amazed me how much they buy into what we do as a profession.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, I work at your association. No, they absolutely buy in. And sometimes some of them buy in more than even some of our members do. And so I'm sure if you haven't figured that out, you'll figure that out.
Thank you. And that's fairly common in different associations. You have people that have worked, when we work side by side with practitioners on particularly on the volunteer side, the boards, and we get to know each other, and we develop empathy, and we really do carry the same ideas with us into our own lives. And the staff, the professional association staff, are all really good at knowing the impact that their work has, and they feel like they are actually helping a profession. That's what keeps us here. We're a part of empowering a profession to be better. And the best association staff do that. And I've seen that in every organization. I definitely have seen it within the AANA staff. We have a magnificent professional staff that they know the value of what they do, and they know the potential. And it's really great. And I'm glad to see that it's recognized.
Let me ask you, all right, how did you find yourself into association management? There's a gap. Did I hear that you had some military background?
I did,
to you?
yes.
So why don't we talk about that too?
Sure. So growing up in Lodi, there's not a lot to do, and it's a good place to get in trouble. So I wasn't born with a silver spoon or anything, even though I grew up in and around.
Around the spoon.
Around the spoon, right? I was near to Silicon Valley. A lot of people in my family worked in Silicon Valley in different startups in the 80s, and my dad for a time worked at Atari.
That's a little claim to fame.
Atari, I remember the
Yeah.
Briefly, but anyway, we found our way outside of the Bay Area in Lodi, where there really wasn't much. And as I was going through school, I didn't feel like I had a whole lot of options. I didn't quite have my mind set on what I wanted to be. But the one thing that I knew that I needed was I needed to change it. And so I enlisted in the Navy. And that was a way for me to sort of reset everything in my life and try to understand the kind of person that I was, to get away from the culture of my family, which, there's good and bad in every family.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Things that they could look back on and smile or cry.
Or just scratch your head.
Yeah.
What were they thinking?
Yeah, there you go. Back to that.
And so the Navy was the place that I went to discover the kind of person I was, the kind of leader I could be, the kind of person I was. And so while I was in the Navy, it's an enlisted story. So you're always in for a surprise when you enlist, particularly in the Navy. I think the Air Force does this too. The Navy is particularly good at that. So telling you about a great job that you will do that's going to get you into a great civilian job after you're done. And
make lots of money.
Right. And then you get there and it's, oh, darn. We just filled that last year.
Right.
So instead, you're going to do this other job that we need more. And so I enlisted to be a gas turbine systems electrician, which would have evolved into steam power plants and working in dams and power infrastructure, which sounded fun and interesting. I didn't know any better at the time. Sure, that sounds like something I could pay the bills buy a house with someday. But when I got there, they said, nope, that's full. You get to be a gunner's mate. And I said, well, that's not even remotely the same. And so I was struggling for a bit. But while I was in boot camp, they did some recruiting for the United States Navy Ceremonial Guard, or the Ceremonial Honor Guard, it's sometimes called. That's the Navy's ceremonial unit that's stationed out of Anacostia Naval Air Station, which doesn't have an airfield, now that I think about it. But Anacostia Naval Air Station in southeast Washington, D.C. And so I was recruited into that position. And for the first 2.5 years that I was in the Navy, my job is essentially being a casket bearer. And in a way, it's a ceremonial job. So your functional decoration to pomp and circumstances of the military. And I did not countless, I did several, many hundreds of funerals in Arlington Cemetery. Our typical work week would be 5 to 7 funerals a day in Arlington, 5 days a week, and sometimes you would end up, going out to Cheltenham, or any of the more regional, Quantico. We can go down to Quantico and do services down there. So if it can happen at a military funeral, I've seen it, and it was a wonderful job that gave me a completely different perspective on service and patriotism and what those things mean. Along the way, I did also discover that I had chosen very poorly, and I had met a number of people who had been career Navy and discovered that I'm probably not the best person to be on a ship. I'm moderate claustrophobic, which I didn't know at the time.
You figured that out real quickly.
And so fortunately, for people who had that first job, as long as you're okay, they'll basically let you pick whatever your next duty station is, whatever your next training. So when it was time for me to actually go into training for some of the Navy to get different value out of it, I decided to go into the Seabees and learn construction, which was, it was a good skill to have. Definitely something that I knew I could be employed with at the time. I was, again, still young, hadn't decided what I wanted to be with the profession yet. And so that took me into being stationed down in Gulfport, Mississippi. And then I was fortunate enough to be in an NCB-1, Naval Mobile Construction Battalion 1. That meant that I was mainly going to be serving in the Atlantic theater. So my first deployment was in Rota, Spain. And I got to go to Tunisia as a side trip to do some work, which was just phenomenal. And at a time when it was a bit more safe for us to go do sort of these NATO goodwill missions. The culture's very different now, and it's unfortunate because once you got away and out into the country and you get to meet people, there really are wonderful people that live out there with almost nothing, but they're wonderful humans, and they're very generous and very kind. Anyway, after that, my next deployment was my last, and when the battalion was off to Guam, I was selected to go to San Diego on a session, which I didn't even know was possible.
Wow, not a bad place to be.
No, it was and the job I had there was fantastic. I was one of the project managers on a chapel construction project at the Coronado Amphibious Base, where Navy SEALs get their base kind of demolition school.
It's where the ladies go and sit and watch them train on the beach, which is a fabulous thing to do. I wouldn't say that I've done it before, but I may have.
Those poor guys come running in with that boat every day.
Oh, yes.
Every day. And I don't. I had some hard days in the Navy, but nothing with what they volunteered to do. And it really is incredible. But if you're ever in the Coronado area, you drive by the old main gate, you could see the chapel that I built right inside that front main gate.
Oh, nice.
So I'm very happy. Anyway, to get back to my biography, at the end of that deployment, I actually requested from the Navy that they release me. It turned out to be about 2.5 months early, which is why I say almost 5 years. Okay. You have to give them an extra year if you're not going to go on a ship. That was the deal. So if you're not going to go on a ship, you extend your enlistment by 1 year. And that's what allowed me to go into the Seabees in the first place. But anyway, while I was doing that job in the Seabees, I just said, if you want to be an architect, this seems like a fun thing. I like the engineering aspect of this. very interesting. And it was something that I thought about a little bit. And the architecture school that I was trying to get into at the time was the California Polytechnic Institute in San Luis Obispo. San Diego County has one of the 2 community colleges with the highest success rates of getting people to transfer into the architecture program. And so I asked if I could be released a couple months early so I could start a semester earlier on that pursuit, and they let me. So that also meant that they didn't have to take me and all of my things back to Mississippi and then move me back to San Diego. So it was an economical choice.
Yeah.
So I studied architecture for a couple of years and then found my way into associations like all young people, or not associations, sorry, but found my way into technology because like all young people, I was still figuring out all of the options and what different careers would look like, and I was kind of sampling them. And working in technology was differently rewarding and definitely more lucrative at the time than architecture would be. And so it just presented a new set of opportunities. And following that trajectory, I worked through a few different places as I developed my skills and wound up taking a job that moved me from San Diego to Washington, D.C. It was an architecture firm, ironically, to be an IT manager in the D.C. area. And when I decided that an architecture firm really wasn't the kind of place that I wanted to work because it was very bottom line driven. It had some great parts of it. They have a design aesthetic and the built environment that any firm is really aiming at. And that's something that's what you take home and you believe in that as an employee and an architect. Very similar to what we were talking about earlier with association staff. Sure. You have to have you have to internalize a little bit of your organization's mission to really get meaning out of it. And so that was the thing that was there. But in the end, it decided that was not the right kind of environment for me. And that's how I found my way into an opportunity at my first association. And not look back, it's been a fantastic career since then. Once I decided this was the kind of home I wanted and the kind of people I wanted to work with. And I've loved every day since.
As a CRNA, you spend years preparing yourself for this career, so we don't want to see you lose out on any of the income you've worked so hard to earn. The best way to protect yourself and give you the confidence that a major life event won't disrupt your financial future is through disability insurance. We've known disability income specialist Robert Smith for many years and have seen the work he's done with nearly 2,000 CRNAs over multiple decades. He can help identify any gaps in your existing coverage and fill those gaps by finding the best value on a policy. Contact Robert and let him know you heard about him on our podcast. Send him an email at rsmithjr@financialguide.com. That's rsmithjr@financialguide.com. Or call him at 504-394-6557. Protect your greatest asset as a CRNA, yourself and your ability to earn a living by adding disability insurance to your financial plan.
That's a pretty circuitous route, but it gives you a lot of extra skill sets that not everybody who would sit in this seat would have.
Yeah, and I think that's positive.
I absolutely do too.
Well, we were talking about on the way over here and sort of did a precursor to this. Randy was in here yesterday and we had a brief conversation about you, and you're not a CRNA. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that because I think the past 2 CEOs have been CRNAs.
I think we had to pass the bylaw.
Yeah,
it was in our bylaws that it had to be a CRNA.
Oh, that might be something to kind of get across because I think that is a positive in a lot of ways. I don't see that as a negative either, but I'd love to hear your viewpoint on it.
Well, and actually, if what I understand about the history of the organization is correct, I think you have to go back to the 70s before you had a non-CRNA running the organization.
Okay. Right. I think there's only ever been one.
And I believe the title was executive director. So I think technically I'm the first CEO. That has been
look at you.
Absolutely. We didn't give up the title CEO until it's been within my time.
And it's an interesting transition. And a lot of organizations, a lot of professional societies make the transition of having a member of the society or a practitioner from the society to having a professional CEO, but not all of them do. And even in my own career, going back to the American Psychiatric Association, their CEO and medical director has always been a psychiatrist. And they've been fortunate enough to be able to recruit and curate really excellent, proven people who understand it and have weathered the tides of, sometimes you get somebody who has more difficult line work. You need to understand the different kind of business that's involved. But usually when an organization gets to a certain point, becoming or maintaining effectiveness requires having somebody that has a more dedicated skill set that is not typical for somebody who is a practitioner to have been exposed to. And
that's a nice way of putting it. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
So, and I've dedicated my career for the past 20 years into understanding how those things are different. Every organization is different. The recipe of what makes one organization work is not going to work in another. And it really gets down to understanding what are the drivers in each different organization and how far you can push and pull on those drivers. And obviously how you develop the shared vision, the partnership between the professional staff and the high functioning board is essential. And so I see that there's a tremendous opportunity for the board to be very focused on defining the long-term strategy and vision for what the AANA can become. And I see my job as partnering with them at enabling that to be a reality. And I worry about everything that is inside the organization, how effective we are, do we have the right resources, are we over encumbered in terms of what we're trying to do? Do we need to pare certain things back, or do we need to grow in new areas? And I bring with me a completely different skill set that is more focused on managing an association professionally, so that the CRNAs involved can be focused on setting the vision for the profession. And those two together will be a great partnership.
So a CEO is the continuous phase. You get a new boss every year.
11 of them technically.
Yeah, exactly. And you report to the board of directors.
Yes.
Talk to us a little bit about getting that new crew every single year and the challenges that you faced in the past and how that's equipped you to come in and do that all over again.
Yeah.
What a revolving door you have.
It is. And, I think a lot of people, before they get to the chief staff officer generically, so different titles, before you get to that job, some people kind of have that almost naive idea of it's going to be great when you actually have that job. You're the boss. And it's like, no.
Right.
It doesn't. You're trading one boss for 11, 12, 15, 60,000, depending on how you look at it in which organization. And it's important to think about it that way. Different organizations have done different things in terms of handling the cycle of incoming and outgoing boards and presidents and whatnot. The AANA's is a little bit different than the three I've been with in the past. And that we have a vice president that is beside the succession currently. And more organizations, I think, will have that be in the succession. You tend to have 2 or 3 lined up, and you know who you're working with. And when you will have some cyclic change, you could temper that change. We get to, so we know the current president, we know the next president, and that's better than not knowing the next president.
Right.
You definitely want that. And so, what I've done, what I'm going to do here with Angie and Drew next week, what I've done with Angie and Matt so far, and what I did with all of the presidents that I worked during my last organization. We have a weekly meeting where we talk about everything that Bill Bruce was worried about this. And we have all of the people that are in succession to be president on that goal. And so that when it's their turn, not only do they have a recent history of what's been going on, they understand the thinking of the predecessor and what's important and the balance that we're trying to maintain of here are the things that the organization wants to do, and here are the things that are constraining how it can do that, because that's really the meat of those conversations that we're having. We do a robust board orientation. We need to, because the AANA board turns over well, other than the officers, 50% every year. And, these amendments that we just had were interesting. And I think one of the things that we may want to think about for some future improvement is adding some stability. I think that this high turnover of a board is a risk factor, would be the way that I would say it, because you don't have the stability, and we could probably be a better organization. We could find a way to introduce that. And that would be just looking at best practices of an association. So, of course, I'm still learning this organization, but I don't see anything that makes me think that would be beneficial to them. And, so every organization has its own model, and it's really important that I develop a good rapport with not just the leaders, but the entire team, and make sure that we are all on the same page and have a very frank and open relationship, which, only 2 months in, but a lot of our board orientation should be focused on how do we establish trust and accountability between staff and board, and what are the norms that we're going to use to make sure that we protect that moving forward, so that next year when we do an orientation, we'll have people say, this has been fantastic, here's how we've done it, this is now going to be our culture. Then we build on that each year as we move forward. So that hopefully in a few years, as people come into leadership and into the board and our other roles, there's less that they need to guess at, and they have more of a sense of what it must be like, because they'll see evidence of it working well, and they'll know that there's definitely a culture that they need to be on board.
Today's show is brought to you by the folks at CRNA Financial Planning, an independent consulting firm that offers financial planning services exclusively to CRNAs and their families. From planning for a child's future college expenses to building a predictable income stream in retirement, the firm is committed to offering you comprehensive financial services, customized to fit your unique needs and objectives. If you have questions about your financial future, get them answered. Call the team at 855-304-3748. That's 855-304-3748. Or go online to crnafinancialplanning.com.
You said trust with the board, and I think that's extremely, extremely important. But I think that there's the other group that needs to be trusted with is the members.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love your opinion on how you do that to keep the members engaged, and still make sure, because, we have heard things and so forth that, that some members don't trust the AANA.
Right.
And
I'm sure it's not just unique to our organization.
I mean, it's got to be every organization. And some of that is discord that's been sowed over a number of years, and maybe there's factions and so forth. But I'd love your opinion, because that is, you've done this with other groups,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure this is not an anomaly.
It isn't, though I will say trust has been something that I've heard more this week than in any week of my career.
Interesting.
Really?
So it's something that we know that there were some trust issues. I knew that there were trust issues coming to the job. The staff side, it's common. There was an interim CEO for a while, and everybody has a different opinion about things.
Right.
We could also see, I was able to see that there was some issues with this between staff and the board. There's some credibility issues that needed to be addressed, which is why we aimed at the board orientation of that. And this week, I've seen the extent to which that has also sort of been cascaded and projected out into the members generally. I think that's been made very clear. And I've been talking to a number of members, walked through the exhibit hall, actually waited in line for a massage and spoke to a couple of members for 15, 20 minutes.
Or just stand and listen.
Yeah, and just
they don't know you.
Well,
or recognize
yes,
you yet.
Exactly. Well, a number have sought me out and
Nice.
want to tell me what their experience is.
Right.
And the number of times that people have remarked on that there's a trust issue is absolutely notable. It's completely changed my perspective on how I think the next couple of years are going to go. How do you win trust? Well, for me, it's actually always been pretty simple. Say what you're going to do, then do what you said you were going to do, and then check in and make sure that everybody agrees that you did what you said.
Yeah.
And then you will establish credibility and trust, as long as you're open and clear about what you want to do and what you see in the future and how you see that done. That's trust is but for somebody who has a capability of being steadfast and consistent, trust is easy, and it should be. And it takes time for different people to award it, and that will come over time. Some people are very skeptical. I'm an incredibly skeptical person, but I tend to offer trust early and reward that with loyalty, and it tends to be returned when people understand that you've given it, that they will also give it. Particularly if you've done nothing to imply that they shouldn't.
Right.
And so really, in order to do that, there needs to be communication. And when I say that, I mean there needs to be communication, not broadcast. So we need to be listening more than we're projecting, and that's important. And again, I'm not saying that we haven't been doing that.
Right.
I'm saying
That's your
this is just a
philosophy.
generality.
This is the generic recipe.
Right.
So, but if we haven't been doing that, we will.
Yeah.
Because that's step one. We need to know. And that's kind of why, even though I'm an introvert, I've been walking around talking to as many people as I can, asking questions, and I need to hear from them, from our members, what they see as the challenges and opportunities.
Right.
And there are plenty of them, of both. I think I said this in October. I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity for this organization, and we just have to unlock it.
That's interesting. Our last 3 CEOs have been introverts.
They sure have.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very true.
And that's something.
I thought that when you said that.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about culture. I'm sure every organization that you've worked with has their own unique culture. How do you foresee that you can marry retaining culture that's with an organization, but yet still moving forward with change?
Yeah, that's always a delicate one.
Yeah, it is.
So everybody says, this is kind of an overworn statement, but it is true. Culture eats strategy for breakfast every week.
Oh, really?
And it actually
that's good.
does. So,
That is-
to change, so you can come in with a plan for something.
Oh, yeah.
And if your plan ignores culture, your plan is going to fail. It is absolutely going to fail.
Yeah.
So when we're thinking about culture of the organization, there's the internal culture, there's the staff culture. There's a lot of huge possibility there, and it's a great culture that I think we can massage into something that will be even better. The culture of members themselves, just in the practice, that's another piece of this that informs it. But when we're thinking about the culture collectively of the AANA, I think this is where you're going. And we have we're kind of on the cusp of a generational shift.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not on the cusp, but really in the throes of a generational shift. And what's normal is for this to be uncomfortable for some people. See their profession and their organization changing in ways that they wish it would not change. And what's difficult is striking the right balance between honoring and respecting the history and the past and preserving of that what is important to preserve, while also showing and communicating out that you are open and welcome to the newer ideas of these younger people who this is already 5 years out of school that are not renewing. And one thing that people need to feel in their professional organization that will prevent them from renewing is not there. Again, I'm not saying that's
Sure.
I don't get it. But if they don't feel like their organization is embracing them and their ideas and their worldviews, they're not going to stay. And the newer generations, particularly, are way less forgiving of missteps than previous generations.
Yes.
I'm of a generation that sort of straddles a couple of mentalities of you do this because it's the right thing to do and everybody else does it, and you do this because it rewards you economically in the long run. That's sort of the boomer to Gen X transition, kind of in the bubble there between those two. And the newer generations that are coming along, they see value very differently. communicated very clearly up front, and they need to be a part of it and have a seat at the table, not because they put 20 years in, but because they're valued right out of the gate. And that sometimes is a cultural shift for some people, and particularly some of my generation who put a lot of time into getting and earning our spot. So that's a challenge. I don't know what the right answer for an organization like this is yet, but we're going to have to be careful about it. I think it gets down to respect, but maybe not pure reverence for what's come before, and being open to some things have to change. If the organization is going to continue to be a powerhouse in the profession, it can't be static. It has to evolve. And sometimes that's going to be an evolution that some people are not going to be comfortable with, and sometimes they're going to be comfortable with. And we'll just need to work really hard to find the right balance. Keep the people engaged. I met with several members of the Diamond Club yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
And we
I was down here podcast taping, so I didn't get to make it.
And I look forward to future meetings with them, as they made themselves available to be a resource that I intend to use, because I do think that part of the future involves actually being very respectful of the past and knowing when to preserve it. One thing that we talked about that I really was shocked by, and I think there's an opportunity here, was sort of dropping a history of the profession in training programs, which I've been through the archives a time or two, and I can't wait to have everybody back in the office and spend more time going back to the archives, because there's just some amazing stuff.
Oh, yes.
The history is really interesting, and it's something that should be celebrated, even if it's not deemed to be required from a clinical perspective. It's still something that everybody should have some foundational knowledge in. You need to find a way to provide that.
Well, you've got a whole series on Beyond the Mask, the whole historical series.
You can listen to it.
Everything. So you can be on your treadmill in the morning,
or on your bike,
or whatever, and you can listen to it. And the beauty of our historical series is two people who really lived
most of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'll push you there. Now, I just want to ask you one more question. Your military background,
yes,
with the pomp and circumstance, with your ceremonial stuff. This organization usually has thrived on a lot of pomp and circumstance. I understand that millennials are not so much into that. I think there's going to have to be a marriage of that, just kind of like you said, because we are straddling a generational divide. Yeah. There are more generations in the workforce and even in our organization.
Now in history, they're saying.
Yeah. What, 4 or 5?
There's 5 now, because you've got the latest that just started. But yeah, I was thinking about that as you were talking. I mean, you think about the average CRNA being 51, 52. Then you've got the generation, that's, Sandy's generation that has been around, and they've seen this organization for years. And you've got to kind of, it's a tough job what you've got, because you've got to kind of appease that group, because you don't want to lose them.
Right.
They've been your pioneers. And then you've got folks that are in a different stage of life. We break this down in our organization. As far as CRNAs, you've got this 51-year-old who is thinking about, man, I'm going to be out of here in 10 or 15 years. And what does that mean for me? What do I need from the AANA to get me through the next 15 years? Then you've got this kind of middle generation, your 30 to 40-somethings that, are starting a family. Maybe they've got a family. They're talking about educating their kids. And what do they need from the AANA? Mm-hmm. And then you've got this 0 to 5. Yep. Who've now gotten out. We've transitioned to the DMP, or a doctorate level program. They're coming out with $250,000, $300,000 in debt. They're able to make really good money, but they're laser focused, a lot of them, on getting rid of this debt as fast as they can. They want to make as much money as they can, but they want to have a quality of life as well. And that's, it's a dichotomy there, because making more money takes away quality of life a lot of times. So you've got all these different factions that, as an association, you've got to somehow meld and bring together and meet everyone's needs to their somewhat satisfaction to keep them as members and keep them engaged. And That's tough. That's a tough job.
It really is. And I think from the AANA's perspective, the real challenge is that it gets down to that quality of life part, because depending on the work environment, often professional association involvement and engagement bites into quality of life. It doesn't always, it's not always allowed from the professional perspective. Sometimes it is,
right,
or to varying degrees, but real engagement is usually you're sacrificing time that you're just getting back to being a normal human,
right?
After you've done training,
right.
You know, and so that's a very difficult thing to see, which is I think why the patience for the organization is probably very, very small in that group, because you only get one or two impressions that have to make up their mind, and then if they don't see it, you might not get them back for a long time. It take a while before they get to a point in their career and gosh, you really need to should. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we want to look very hard at is, okay, we know that this problem exists, and that's one demographic. Right. As we go back in time a little bit and look at the previous cohorts that have come through this, at what point did they show up, and then why? Mm-hmm. And I think it's really, there's an opportunity for us to have a conversation with them about why have they opted out, and what brought them back, and more importantly, is there something other than, obviously, if we can find a way to help relieve their debt, or find, if we could give them something that they can't find anywhere else, there might be something there, an opportunity for us. Exactly. I don't know what it is. Yeah, but
you got to know the problems before you can solve them, right?
That's right. We're just spitballing. So we need to actually go out and have conversations with people that are in those trenches and understand the world from their view, and see, is there a space for the AANA to provide some comfort, in some way, or some value in some way.
Well, I will tell you, as a CRNA, before I got really heavily involved, which was a small span of time before I jumped right on in. But whenever I went on the national board, I always knew we had an incredible organization. Looking from the outside, when I was on the inside, I realized that we had an incredible organization. So, that's just somebody who has been there, and welcome to this. I think you're going to bring a great perspective with all of your varying backgrounds, your experience, because in my mind, we can't become just too focused and this is how we do it. I mean, we need to be looking at how other people do things too, and we might can learn something from that. So with you having three other
that's
organizations,
the strong suit. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I was a hard sell to not have a CRNA as CEO in some respects, but I can see that it could be advantageous to us. But the other thing is, how many CRNAs have that skill set?
And not a lot. There's not a lot of Randys around.
No.
Sitting around. But you chose a non-CRNA to be your co-host. So, I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't be accepted.
I don't know. What is it about y'all?
Bill, I want to be really, I know you've got lots of other engagements, so just real quick, because I think this is an important thing to get across is, what do you see as the qualities of a leader that you have and what you're going to bring to this? Because I think that's important. Mm-hmm. People know your style a little bit, as a leader.
I think that the main thing is, it gets back to this comments earlier about trustworthiness. And my professional ethos is all centered around being accountable, being transparent, and being as direct as you can be in any situation. I, as an introvert, like to do a lot more observing and thinking, and then introverts like to be confident that when they're going to make a play, it's going to work.
It's going to work, yes.
Sometimes we don't get the luxury of waiting. I'm here today. I would much rather have this conversation in 3 more months.
We'll have another one in 3 months. Don't you worry.
I look forward to it. It will be great. But no, I think I've got a long history of solving really complicated problems in associations that sometimes prove to not be as complicated as people who are in the box see them. And sometimes they're incredibly complicated, even however you look at them. And I've always done so by honoring the kind of things that in other people that I value in myself. who have an ethic of hard work, professionalism, of honesty and transparency, and hold themselves and people they work with accountable. And I think all of those things combined to, you may or may not agree with the intellectual decisions that somebody makes. You really don't have a hard time trusting that they're going to be something that is dependable and predictable.
Right.
And so I think that's what I bring. Maybe more. But I'm incredibly happy to be here. Very proud to be able to have this opportunity. It is absolutely an incredible organization. Just like I said, it's blown me away this past few days, getting to see more and learn more about each of the members and everything that we do. And it's just the beginning. I'm going to be learning about this organization and the profession for forever. I don't think I'll ever get the entire picture. But it's going to be fun, and I'm really going to enjoy it.
Great. Bill, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure to meet you today, and we're excited to have you and in the CRNA community. I mean, I'm not a CRNA, but I've been around long enough that, I think they've kind of adopted me a little bit. And I'm excited for you to be here. I think you're going to bring a completely fresh perspective because you come at it from a different angle. And sometimes that's what you need to do. And
well, that's why you're here with me.
Right. And that's what makes it work.
Yeah,
that's what
you
makes
bring
it work.
a different angle.
Absolutely. So, all right, Sharon, I think it's a wrap.
I think so.
Well, if our listeners want to help us grow, Sharon, how can they help us grow?
Well, the best way to help us grow is to leave us a review, but make it
positive. We all know there's enough negativity in this world.
Absolutely. We're in the top 50 medical podcast in the country on our way to number
one. Thanks to our listeners. And we're already number one in the CRNA community and look forward to staying there. But we couldn't do it without our listeners.
We could not. So keep listening. Share us on social media. Tell all your friends and keep sending us some love.
Until next time.
It's a wrap.
Have you thought about what would happen if you weren't able to work for 2 or 3 years? On average, 25% of people will file a disability claim, and most of us aren't prepared for that loss of income. Every CRNA needs to protect their biggest asset, yourself, and your ability to earn with a disability insurance policy. We recommend contacting Robert Smith, a master disability insurance specialist with more than 30 years of experience and 1,800 CRNA clients, to find the coverage that fits you best. The best way to do that is to send him an email at rsmithjr@financialguide.com. That's rsmithjr@financialguide.com. Or call him at 504-394-6557. Beyond the Mask is made possible by the team at CRNA Financial Planning. With almost 2 decades of experience, the firm guides CRNAs through the complexities of investing and financial planning. Schedule a free consultation today by calling 855-304-3748 or go online to crnafinancialplanning.com.
Hi, this is Jackie Rolls, President of the International Federation of Nurse Anesthetists and President and founder of Our Hearts, Your Hands, a global anesthesia support community that takes donations to allow nurse anesthetists in low and middle income countries to go to educational programs, buy equipment, or textbooks. Your donations are tax deductible, and we would appreciate your support.
OSA EMR is a free anesthesia EMR developed by CRNAs that you can download and use on an iPad. Our nonprofit mission is to make sure that solo and small practice CRNAs can digitally record their anesthetics. To learn more, visit osaemr.com to download and consider donating to our cause. Remember, for CRNAs, data is destiny.
Be sure to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and anywhere you like to listen to shows. Also be sure to check out BeyondTheMaskPodcast.com. Each episode is posted there with a corresponding blog post, and we timestamp important parts of the episode to help you quickly get to the content you're looking for. Also check out the special series section on the site. You can follow along and catch up on the CRNA History Series, episodes specifically about political conversations in the industry, or try the CRNA Personal Finance Series. It's all on BeyondTheMaskPodcast.com. And if you have a question for the show or want to be a guest, or even suggest a particular topic, fill out the contact form on the site or send an email directly to us at info@BeyondTheMaskPodcast.com. And lastly, let's take the conversation social. Check out our Beyond the Mask podcast Facebook page and Facebook group.